Welcome to The Magic of You on 105.9 Seaside FM.
Good morning and welcome to The Magic of You for May 17th. I'm Krista Cook and I'm here with my co-host Holly Poole. Good morning, Holly.
Good morning, full moon day.
Oh, today in our studio we have the pleasure of welcoming back Dr. Fronie Leroy. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, today's topic is all about children. Could there perhaps be another reason for ADHD and ADD diagnosis? Now, this topic is one that impacts so many people in this day and age. Just for my children in school, knowing how many of her friends have actually been diagnosed with one or the other. So let's start at the beginning. Could you explain what ADD and ADHD is?
From a Chinese medicine perspective,
Yes.
It's a neurological disorder. It's a disturbed spirit, so the brain doesn't work properly.
So as in like neurons firing, you mean? Is that what you're sort of thinking, or?
Like all neurological disorders, the brain, for whatever reason, doesn't function properly. They don't actually know why or what's going wrong.
It is such a common thing. I know that with all your experience, and you've just gotten back from another wonderful trip, how common is this in Chinese medicine in terms of ADHD and ADD being common?
In China itself,
Yes.
it's a relatively new disorder. It's just in about the past 10 years. It's so recent that the old texts don't actually have a syndrome that would cover the symptoms of attention deficit disorder.
Okay, now I just have to pause a moment because I find this fact just beyond. How can that be? Why is it in only the last 10 years that they would experience this when, gosh, it seems like it's been around here. I mean, I can think back over the last probably 18 years and think of the kids through my kids that I've known been diagnosed. What would be the difference?
The introduction of Western diet, Western lifestyle, television, video games, and Western medicines have become more widely used in China in the past 10 years.
So are we saying this is a North American, I don't want to call it...
Predominantly a North American disorder.
But, you know, when we think back, and I'm not all that old, but let's not go there. But going to school, I don't remember anyone even talking about ADD, ADHD. So is it something that was called something different when we went to school? Like, you know, back in I was back in my school in like the 70s. Was it called something else, or did it just not exist then?
I think it maybe was mildly. Like, I remember, like, always one or two in a class that would act out a bit, but not to the extent of today. This is a new occurrence in our children, and it's really since our children have stopped doing the excessive play like we did.
Mm-hmm.
So what we were talking about earlier, we were saying how when we were growing up, it was incredibly common. We were told to go out and play. You came back for lunch, you went out and played, and you came back for supper, and you went out and played, and you came back when you had to.
Well, I think we stayed out because if we were in, we had to do things.
Yeah.
And listen to parents and stuff.
But I mean, it was never, I don't want to call it was sentence, it was freedom for us. And I mean, gosh, what we did in those hours, we discovered a lot of things.
We learned actually how to socialize and how to behave ourselves in our social group.
You're right, yes.
And solve a lot of our own issues. I know they talk about bullying and so on in school today, and yes, that certainly is a very big issue. But I think because we were social, we solved a lot of that before it got to certain limits.
But we would pick up for each other. We would have our group, and if somebody tried to hurt somebody in the group wouldn't allow that, right?
But coming back, so how does play? Let's just talk about play and being outdoors and playing. I mean, we played hopscotch and we played skipping rope
tree
and
house. We ran,
all
we
kinds
tagged,
of things. What effect does things like that sort of have on the brain? Is there an answer to that? I don't know.
Well, there is, because we're learning, continually learning. We're planning, we're learning problem solving, but we're also doing the physical activity. And so we sleep better at night. And one of the big symptoms of attention deficit is poor sleep.
While we're on that, can I just ask, is there sort of a list of what might parents look for if they didn't know? Besides what you just said, is there a list of sort of behavior issues?
They have bad dreams. They get agitated and irritated. They can't concentrate. They can't carry out a simple task. If you give them a list of things to do, they would have trouble to complete everything on it, to remember. They have problems with memory. And so that makes it hard for them to play with other children. And it's very frustrating for the parents, because dealing with a child like that and the busy lifestyle that we have in the West now, and throw that in, and then throw in problems at school, and teachers are calling, and the child is not doing well with their studies. It's a very frustrating place for parents to be as well.
It sounds like the start of a really bad cycle.
It is, because then again it damages the self-esteem of the child. The child gets labeled, and labels are never a good thing.
No, they're never. It doesn't matter if whatever the labels were used when you went to school, none of them were certainly complimentary for the most part. What can we do about this? Like, where do we start to try to make this less of such a prevailing syndrome?
I think we need to look back at what we've done differently and incorporate some of the old ways back into the children's lives. So we've obviously dropped the ball on something.
Yes, we have. Usually it seems to be just, let's face it, I know, I don't mean to talk about my girls, but growing up, they could easily take on just about any guy in a sport because they were outside all the time. I mean, that was a big part of what they did. And looking at the boys around us who, how shall I say, you know, the video games, the TV, the lack of wanting to go outside, just no physical activity, they actually were diagnosed as having one or both of these.
Boys actually have a way higher instance.
Why is that now?
Because they're more yang. Children are yang by nature.
Can you explain? I know we're talking yin and yang, but what does that mean?
Yang is the energy, the fire, the movement. The movement, digestion, anything that creates movement is yang, and yin is the resting, cool, water, peaceful part of us. Children are yang, and you go around any 3-year-old, and it's obvious that they're yang. So the other part of this that we need to look at is what is normal. You know, a rambunctious 3-year-old, because, you know, the play school that he goes to, he's a little bit more rambunctious than other children. Is that attention deficit, or is it normal for that child?
That drives me insane. You hit upon something growing. Oh my gosh. I find that to be one of the most frustrating. If you have an active child, it is so common for one person at some point when you're bringing those children up to mention it to you. I know, again, just knowing children who were active, they weren't, I don't know, I guess putting labels on way too quickly.
And again, we're supposed to be really active. That's how we learn our survival skills. That's how we learn to cope in an adult world, is the problem solving that we learn as children. I think if we had more physical activity in school, like in China where they do the Qigong, right in the classroom, they do self-acupressure massage. Any 5-year-old knows how to do self-acupressure massage, and they do it throughout the day, and it's required.
And they obviously believe in it.
They've been doing it. It's part of their culture for thousands of years. But and the food in China, especially in the outskirts, when you get away from where the McDonald's and all that, they have really, really high-quality nutrition in China. They eat their food in certain combinations. Like they would tell you in China, if you were eating a banana because you were hungry, that would be a very bad thing to do.
Really?
Yeah, because it drives your insulin levels up. But if you eat it after a meal, it's okay. But their food combining is common knowledge, whereas here it's not.
Right.
Yeah, obviously. I think I just proved that.
Well, and also when we were chatting, when you first came in, we were talking about eating rice at the end.
Yeah, you always eat rice at the end. Rice is the main part of the meal, but you eat it at the end of the meal.
And you also mentioned about black rice and black chicken, which I thought was very interesting.
That's when you're really deficient, like after you have a baby or if you've had surgery, something that you're really weakened, you would eat black rice and black chicken.
What is black rice and black chicken?
It's black chicken actually that has black meat. You can actually get it at the Chinese market here.
Okay.
So it would, in Newfoundland, it would look like seal meat? That dark?
Yeah, it's that dark.
So let's say I had a child and the child had been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, and I brought the child to you, Dr. Fronie. What would be your first plan of action?
First, I'd have to examine the child to find out what is the deficiency, because there's many different syndromes that it can present. No two children are alike, so you have to figure out what's the deficiency and what's the excess of this particular child and address it. In my clinic, I actually address it with a lot of the points that I would use for brain injury. And it works really, really well. And children tolerate it well. Parents are more afraid of acupuncture than children.
Right.
But I find if I do it at the head points more especially, the child will, I see them maybe in 6 weeks' time, and they'll say, they were still, they were calm, they were able to get their tasks done. They find a huge difference with those particular points.
Life-changing.
Because it's also got to be difficult on the child. I understand how difficult it is on the parent, because you're trying to run a whole household and work life, and then you're also dealing with this child who sometimes appears to be out of control. But it's also got to be difficult on the child themselves.
It's extremely difficult for the child. Nobody acts in those ways who feels good. Nobody acts in those ways. Like they say attention seeking and that, I don't buy that. People act that way because they feel miserable. Their digestion is usually messed up. They haven't slept well. They're having nightmares. They're having problems at school where they're being bullied because they're disruptive in class. They feel like the teachers don't like them. Everybody's worn out around them. So it's a horrible place for a child to be.
And I don't mean to bring up a horrible subject, but I wonder what impact that has on suicide rates.
I don't know of any studies on that, but I think I'd be more concerned about quality of life. I think a person's quality of life is really heavily impacted. And when we're older, when we're this age, how often in a day do you think back to your childhood?
Probably not very often.
But when you do, it's good stuff. And
it's wonderful.
Can you imagine that each time that you thought about your childhood, you thought about being put in the corner or
No, it makes my stomach just go tight. It immediately invokes a lot of stress in me just listening to that. So, gosh, being that person?
Yeah, or being excluded from things, or even at home. Parents are frustrated and
definitely.
They feel like they're stupid because they can't sit and do their task, and they're usually higher than average intelligence. That's not what the problem is. The problem is gathering the thoughts in and being able to focus.
So coming back to if a child has been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, is that something then they have to, say, have as a label for the rest of their life? Or
No, I don't believe that. There are things like acupuncture. I think we all should work together with it. We have their family doctor, their pediatrician, their Chinese medicine doctor. I think a holistic nutritionist is an awesome thing with attention deficit, and a naturopath to test for the food sensitivities. So you need a whole team around you, and lots of help on how to deal with it. What is it with this child? Some children it might be red dye, some children it may be milk, it may be a combination of a lot of things. So use all the experts that you can get into your group and everybody work together.
Because I think sometimes the parent just feels
Alone.
lost, alone,
totally
lost.
alone.
A shreddy in a bowl of milk.
Yeah, and then guilt-ridden.
And then perhaps go into a state of frustration, too. And that doesn't help the child, it doesn't help the family situation, and it doesn't help the schooling.
And that's, again, in Chinese medicine, you wouldn't just treat the child. You would treat the parents. If they're siblings, you would treat the siblings, because the impact, it's the same as stroke in China. You would treat the whole family, because the whole family is traumatized. So you would treat the whole family with this as well, because the whole family is having difficulty. So you would treat their anxiety, if their stomachs are upset, if they're not sleeping. You would treat everybody. You put everybody on a more even keel, and then everybody's better able to cope.
Which makes so much sense to me, because even thinking about it from the energy world, right, rather than even just the physical, from the energy world, you've got the whole house disrupted, so...
Oh, it's such an interesting topic. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment with more with Dr. Fronie Leroy.
This is The Magic of You on 105.9 Seaside FM.
Thank you for joining us for the last half of The Magic of You for May 17th. I'm Krista Cook, and I'm here with my co-host Holly. And in our studio today, we are speaking with Dr. Fronie Leroy. We have been talking all about children, ADHD and ADD diagnosis. Before we left, we just touched very briefly on diet. So let's go into that a little more.
Well, our diet, our Western diet, obviously, is carbohydrate-based. And sugar has been shown to make attention deficit a lot worse. Children can really react, or adults with it as well can react to it. And also the chemicals in our food. We don't really know long-term effects of these chemicals or the hormones, where there's growth hormones in the milk or in the cows. How's that affecting our children?
Everything just gets so complicated.
Yeah, I think if we can keep, my advice to anybody with children or anybody in general, if you can keep your food as close to its natural state as possible to eat, you would feel better. And that's for anybody.
And I think we're starting to get that. I mean, I know everybody's eating healthy around me a lot more than they used to be.
And we had Georgina Barnwell on, where she talked about having at least one thing, start with that, one thing live on your plate, like green leaf vegetables or...
Bean sprouts.
Yeah, she was big on bean sprouts.
But in China, you would have, see, that's where the difference is. They have huge varieties. They have a center wheel on their table, and there's small dishes of maybe 15 different vegetables. And there would be some protein, like some chicken, some fish. But very little protein, but a lot of vegetable.
And they're cooked vegetables, are they?
Mostly in China, you would eat cooked vegetables.
Steamed, I guess, probably, rather than fried, or?
Yeah, they're not big on frying. If they're frying, it's like something specific, like a chicken and dipped in something or something like that.
I love those veggies.
But they use peanut oil to fry in.
Peanut oil now.
You couldn't get away with that here, but they don't have the problems with the nut allergies like we have here.
Yeah.
Again, I find that, we're talking about this not being common when we went to school. Same thing with allergies and peanut butter. I never, ever recall having a child allergic to peanut butter growing up.
But let's come back. We're talking about children with ADD and ADHD. Do you find that there are adults that also come in with ADD or ADHD?
Lots of them, and undiagnosed. And, I get them, they're 40 years old, and they've been having issues like this for their entire life. And they get some treatments behind them, they get some good herbs into them, their syndrome is corrected. And what they describe it as, it feels like there's been a curtain removed. They can finally see.
So what would be some symptoms for them?
Depression is a big one. It's hard to keep a job, and your skills around your relationships and that aren't so good because you can't concentrate. It's not deliberate on the person's they're not trying to do it, but they forget to do things. They don't communicate very well.
And I mean, I'm just thinking, if you had that stress as a child, and that has, been inside you for 40 years, holy, that's, does it take more treatments? Because they've been holding it in longer?
Not necessarily, no.
Oh, that's good.
If you have a good health underneath, like you would always have what we would call kidney yin deficiency. So there'd be a whole group of symptoms like constipation, depression, poor digestion, muscle leg cramps, and things like that. There's a whole group of things that would come with it. The person just would feel unwell.
But is it possible to, say, just develop ADD at age 35 or 40 or 50?
It seems in the older ones that I have, it's like in their early 20s, they say they started to feel that way. And with males, late teens is when usually any type of mental disorder will surface in, like bipolar or those types of things. But they'd say no, they did, they played sports and they did well in school and that kind of thing. It's something that happened a bit later.
It also makes me question, too, neurological, one assumes that means in the head, correct? It makes me think about cell phones and the use of cell phones and how teenagers often constantly have them glued to their ear.
They've done actually a pile of research on that. And because they were thinking that tumors were more predominant, but that was ruled out.
Oh, excellent.
That's just recently. But again, magnetic fields, do we know what they do to us? Probably not, right?
Dr. Leroy, would you kindly provide all your contact information so our listeners can give you a call if they have some children or a child that they would like some help with?
The clinic phone number is 444-4724, and we're at 1242 Bedford Highway.
And email?
l.fronie@yahoo.com.
And, sorry. Could you repeat the number, please?
444-4724.
And we will put a link on our website, The Magic of You, so that you can just access it quickly. This is a topic that we certainly could go into more, but it at least gives people another option, something they may not have known before they listened to this morning. So I have no doubt you've helped people already.
Thank you.
Next week, Janice Weber is on. We are going to be talking about physiotherapy.
Physiotherapy and whole physiotherapy. So Janice is a physiotherapist, but she doesn't only do just physiotherapy. She actually takes people through Tai Chi and exercise. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe she's also a Reiki master, so she does energy work. So it's a whole therapy versus just physiotherapy.
Oh, interesting. So she'll be here next week. Now, we're very excited. We have this event that we talked about last week, Celebrate the Magic in You, with Holly and me. This is taking place June 5th at the Armdale Yacht Club in Halifax. Well, we're just so excited. The net proceeds is actually being donated to Cystic Fibrosis Canada. We have Karen Force, the Angel Lady, who will be there. She has written Angels of the Maritimes by Your Side and Canadian Angels by Your Side. You'll be able to purchase a book, have Karen autograph it, and she will give you a free 2-minute angel reading. There's going to be lots of other goodies that you get for your money. Information sessions on astrology with Holly, numerology with Ann Perry, aromatherapy with Alana Downey, and Body Talk Nova Scotia with Kelly Burry. We're going to have psychic readings with Karen DeVouge, Patty Atkinson, and Gloria Burbage. Free aura scans, courtesy by Casa Roma Wellness Center. Oh, Jill's Jewelry. Now, she's going to have a workshop, and the workshop does cost extra, but she's donating all of that, $20 to CF. So, again, goes to a great cause. And you
she makes sea glass jewelry, which is amazing, which the person would make and walk away with themselves.
And, gosh, know that they help CF. We're going to have gem gemstones and crystals. We're going to have Fifth Avenue jewelry, Avon door prizes, refreshments, surprises, and music by Christian Nadon. I am telling you, I am so excited. It's going to be fabulous.
And the celebration of our 1-year anniversary.
Yes, this is show number 50. 2 shows away from 1 year. Very, very exciting. And, of course, it wouldn't be happening if we didn't have an audience. We need listeners, and we are very, very grateful that you are all listening to us. Now, if you would like to reach us, you can do so through themagicofyou.ca. We're available on YouTube, iTunes, Facebook, Blog Talk Radio, as well as putting our guest links on our website.
Many, many thanks to our sponsor, of course, which is Body Talk Nova Scotia. They have sponsored us all the way through, and it's fabulous.
And I'm really glad they're going to be a big part of our celebration, so they'll be able to...
and Dr. John Veltheim is coming again.
Oh, yes, that's right. They're going to be selling tickets on that. So as you can see, it's going to be a great event. Tickets, you can call 449-7886. That's 449-7886. You will get a recording. It'll tell you where you can go purchase your ticket. And I will also say I hope to be in a position within the next 2 days to be able to take your credit card. So that'll make it much more convenient. Fabulous topic today. We're very excited. We're hoping that this will go up on YouTube. We're having it filmed, so everybody wave at the camera, and that way we will add a new dimension to our show. You can see us actually do our talking and all our funny faces. Now, with this quote today, I really wanted to find something that, well, related to our topic. So this is what I chose. If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it's because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. And that's from Henry David Thoreau. Until next week, remember, we all have the magic within us to create the reality we desire. Thank you for listening. Take care. Have a great week.
The Magic of You is a production of Voice Waves Atlantic.